Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Tabitha Akor. Let's begin. Across Ambazonia tonight are stories that speak less about statistics and more about people trying to cope with harsh realities. In Bomaka, Buea, a man has been shot dead in an early morning incident that has left residents shaken. The sound of gunfire at dawn quickly turned into panic, and by the time the noise faded, a life had been lost. For the people in that neighborhood, it is another reminder of how quickly ordinary mornings can turn tragic and how uncertain safety has become for many families. In Menchum County, the struggle looks different but feels just as heavy. Poor roads have reached a point where even the most basic moments of life and death are affected. Families say they are now forced to transport the bodies of their loved ones on motorbikes because vehicles cannot reach their communities. It is a painful reality that shows how deeply infrastructure challenges are affecting dignity, movement, and everyday survival. Now, from gunfire in Bomaka to broken roads in Menchum, these are not just isolated events, they are lived experiences shaping how people wake up, grieve, and move through each day in Ambazonia. But behind these two realities lies a deeper question that residents are increasingly asking. How did it come to a point where life can be lost in one place before dawn and dignity carried on a motorbike in another? And what does this say about the future of the communities living through it in Ambazonia? Well, we explore these reports tonight. Let's head on to the prime headlines. Bamenda Regional Hospital lab records major growth and 5-star rating amid Ambazonian war. Tonight, to take a look at Ambazonian State Army reinforced Monday lockdown born bikes of the falters in Bamenda. Also tonight, poor roads force families in Menchum to transport corpses on motorbikes. And an African scene, we'll take a look at South Africa's luxury boat industry shifts focus to Europe amid weakening U.S. demand. And on news across the globe, Starmer faces growing pressure to resign as labor revolt deepens. All this we will look into, but then let's head on to the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. A man was shot dead during an early morning attack in the Mile 18 area of Bomaka, Buea, on Monday, May 11, 2026. Residents said multiple gunshots were heard across the neighborhood at dawn, triggering panic among locals. The victim was later discovered lying in a pool of blood with severe gunshot wounds. He reportedly died shortly after the attack, despite attempts to save his life. Witnesses alleged that armed men, believed to be French Cameroonian army, carried out the shooting, although the circumstances surrounding the incident remain unclear. No official statement had been released by local authorities as of first time, and the identity of the victim had not yet been confirmed. Now we see that the killing has heightened fear and tension in Bomaka, with residents calling for increased security patrols and protection for civilians amid ongoing war. Well, tonight, this report and more will be having, but then we are so honored to have our legal mind barrister Mbeseha with us tonight to give us his thoughts, his reactions, and analysis, in-depth analysis to this report as they unfold. Barrister Mbeseha, good evening, sir, and welcome to a new week. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me once more at the beginning of the week.
Mbeseha. As violence continues to claim civilian lives in Ambazonia, places like Bomaka, how long can residents remain caught between fear, insecurity, and the absence of accountability from French Cameroonian government?
Well, they can remain as long as God gives them life to live and the opportunity to survive. Because, this place they call Bumaka is just about a kilometer from Munya. In Munya, the large place there. That Bumaka is less than a kilometer from Morocco in Buea. In Morocco, there's a large police station there. Gendarmes and so on and so forth, who are littered everywhere there. People have to lose that without anybody being held accountable. Something is wrong. As you always said, nobody has made a statement. Is that usual? No. Under normal circumstances, the security forces that are supposed to maintain law and order and protect the ordinary citizens are supposed to have issued a statement about that. And at the very least, tell the same lie that investigations are ongoing. But silence, here we don't understand. But in simple language, silence here might amount to complicity. The other accomplices to what is going on, they don't want to investigate. Or they are so carefree, they don't care what happens to the people there. Either way, the administrative authority there has to be blamed. That is part of Ambazonia we're fighting to liberate. We have not yet liberated the Ambazonia. And so the responsibility of taking care of the citizens, the security of every single individual, lies on the occupation forces. And so they cannot say, well, that is Amba. No. The police and the gendarmes and all those that I have mentioned are paid by taxpayers' money, which money includes our own. And so if they cannot give an account of all this, we don't know what to do next. But we can only turn to the individual civilians, wherever you live. Outside is very, very dangerous. Take care of your life. You have to be very careful. Because the other kill under stray bullet, the other gangsters robbing you without anybody holding you accountable, or they are the security forces themselves who are supposed to protect you, either condoning in this or actively participating in such crimes. Either way, the individual has to be safe. They have to save their own lives. There's no reason why a thing happening like that. The first person to be on the scene should have been the police. And back to the office or the gendarme, they should have issued a statement. They should have said that we took this man to the hospital and he was declared dead of bullet wounds. And of course, if they are scientifically correct, they will know what of bullet wounds were. And then, of course, at their usual lies, we are investigating, though they will not investigate. That's a normal procedure. And even in the West, where we live, sometimes investigation can take years, but you never go unpunished, they will catch you. But the problem is that nobody is even agreeing to investigate. Nobody is even accepting to investigate. Nobody is even pretending to investigate. And so poor young man who is dead, we feel sorry for everybody who is there and for others who died before him. You are just one of the several who have died. And the author can say right here from here, talking for Ambazonia, is that the future will hold a different level of security. In future, there will be protection for you. There will be guarantee that illegal acts shall be investigated. There will be assurance that when investigations are over, the perpetrators will be brought to book and be paid in the rightful coins. Over to you.
Barrister Mbeseha, that's really a sad report. But then let's look over to what is seen as a new development in Bamenda. The ongoing war in the Ambazonian and the mainland zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia has caused the laboratory at Bamenda Regional Hospital to record a significant growth and quality gains in 2025. Data presented at its annual revenue meeting over the weekend shows. According to the report, the lab served more than 56,000 patients and carried out over 237,000 tests last year, a rise of several thousand patients compared to 2024. The facility also expanded its diagnostic menu, introducing new tests for tuberculosis, hepatitis B, and vitamin D. It renewed its international quality certification and increased the number of accredited tests, strengthening compliance with global standards. Officials said most results were released on schedule. Sample rejection rates stayed very low, and external quality assessments ranked the laboratory among the top performers. Services ran without interruption throughout 2025 with no reported shortages of supplies. Now we'll see that independent inspectors awarded the lab a 5-star rating. Patient and clinician surveys also indicated high satisfaction with the quality and timeliness of service. Now to boost capacity, the lab's 51 staff members completed 28 training sessions focused on error reduction and improved service delivery. Hospital Director Dr. Nsem Dennis praised the laboratory team for raising healthcare standards in Bamenda during the review meeting. Discussions also addressed supply chain management with Bong Roland, highlighting challenges tied to the short shelf life of some laboratory materials. Now looking ahead to 2026, the laboratory plans to introduce more tests, further cut patient waiting times, and maintain its international certification. The lab says it remains guided by its motto to excel beyond expectation. Now, Barrister Mbeseha, a development worthy of commendation, would say, but then can healthcare excellence in Bamenda truly be separated from the realities of an ongoing war already, or is this growth itself a reflection of how far or how war is in itself reshaping public health systems in Ambazonia?
No, I can never. Now, let me say this. They have 5 stars. Just they can have 5 stars in Bamenda under the difficult circumstances. I don't quarrel with that. Don't congratulate them for doing that. But behind the 5 stars they're giving them, they're giving us some figures. The number of people they treated from 1,000 to several thousands. And the top black, if that is what they did, that should be it. Probably it's not Bamenda in terms of health-wise. Bamenda is one town in the so-called Northwest region. Clapping hands over that is tantamount to sitting, for example, in Bamenda and hearing that so many people were treated in queues in Yaoundé and they got well. How many people will get to queues in Yaoundé if you are sick in Bamenda? So today, let us come back to Bamenda. How many people who need a lab test will be able to leave Mbembe, just 25 kilometers away, to come to Bamenda and do it? How many people who live in Womb, in Kambe, in Banso, and all those areas that constitute the so-called Northwest can have access to that health facility in Bamenda? Less than 5%. And so that is not what we want. Bamenda do a good job, but it doesn't translate into what we're doing simply with health, into the idea of good health care in the Northwest, let us put it this way, or anywhere else in Ambazonia. We have had news right here where victims, people shot, were pulled out of the very hospital and killed by the military who wanted to seek treatment. We have had reports here where people were in the Akum Health Center, a few kilometers from that hospital, who were sick and were dragged out and killed. And so what's the essence of a hospital getting 5 stars or 10 stars? If these facilities globally, it is a regional hospital, but it's regional because they have other annexes attached to it, health centers, whatever thing you call it. And so if the people corresponding that makes all these things an annex are not getting what we require in terms of health, we are selling after the market. We said here 2 weeks ago, and I think there was a report where we discussed it, how the Kalek Mission Health Pediatric Center in Banso was moving to Yaoundé. And one of the excuses we heard was that the roads were so impossible. A man having a heart attack in Bamenda, just in Bamenda, talk less of being in Buea or being in Kambe, could hardly reach the health, the pediatric, the health center, the heart center in So. And so you die. So what happens in the Bamenda Regional Hospital translates to overall good health in the region, overall good health in Ambazonia, which we are fighting for. And so congratulations to those people for doing what they did, but the victims are still the victims. We are the victims of incompetence. Yes. Again, I'm not sure that you sitting here with me, if you walk into the hospital, you will just get treatment. You might, if you have somebody who will give you money, because those things are not given free. You might, if you have an uncle, a brother, a sister who is highly placed. But overall, health should not be discriminatory. Health should not be selective. It should be to everybody. So congratulations to those who work in Bamenda, who have gotten their 5 stars. Congratulations for doing that. In spite of all the difficulties, no money. We expect the 5 stars to come from Yaoundé, Douala. But there, where the president himself lives, in Yaoundé, the head of state who lives there, doesn't go to consult in the hospital in Yaoundé. He has to take a plane, charter plane, fly out for days and weeks to go and be treated somewhere abroad. So overall, the health system has collapsed. It has failed. We don't judge the success of the health system by measuring the work done in one single health unit. Again, in conclusion, congratulations to the doctors and nurses who work in Bamenda Regional Hospital. But health, again, should not be selective. It should be general. That thing should be duplicated, replicated everywhere.
Lockdown, locally called Ghost Town, has been enforced by the Ambazonian government since 2017 as part of the ongoing war. It typically restricts movement, business and school activities every Monday. Eyewitnesses said the atmosphere in Bamenda was tense throughout the day, with streets largely deserted and businesses shuttered. No casualties were reported during the enforcement action. However, the destruction of property has sparked concern among residents, with commercial bike riders, many of whom depend on daily earnings, counting losses. Now, Barrister Mbeseha. The Monday lockdown is a reminder of the Ambazonian struggle for self-determination. Now, with the Ambazonian State Army continuing to enforce it as part of its position, however, we see that residents have experienced concerns over the destruction of property during enforcement actions. So what would be your appeal to those who violate the lockdown in order to prevent a recurrence of such incidents?
I don't need to appeal to them because they are criminals themselves. They got what they would deserve because you know that they didn't know. See, you don't go and crucify yourself and blame the carpenter who gave you a piece of cross, a piece of wood. You kill yourself. What we call the Monday lockdown, call it Ghost Town, has become a national day in Ambazonia, recognized by us, recognized even by the government. Because on those days, government offices don't even open. They have accepted that fact. They are symbolically important. The question you must ask is, those few boys, were 2, 3, whatever they were 10, why do they take the risk? Behind every law, there's a consequence. Nobody asked that their back should be bent, but you took the risk for no reason. I've said here many times before, this Monday Ghost Town, how much does it cost you just to sleep in your house? Just for 24 hours, and then you would have saved yourself from any embarrassment. It's not that they did not know. These are people who are trying to play defiance. They are defying the people who impose Ghost Towns. We will do this and see what will happen. Just like the minister asked one of us in Yaoundé, and so what will you do? If I ride my motorbike on this day, what will you do? We don't know what they will do, but they have seen what happens to people who violate those things. And so the author can tell them, not appeal to them. No, I can tell them and other people who see these things happening to be safe. You have to be wise. I've said you have to keep yourself safe. You have to be wise yourself. But if you decide to go out and violate these things voluntarily because nobody was forcing them out, you are taking a risk. They are lucky that nobody killed you. By motorbike, costs several hundreds of francs. It would take them a fortune to buy another one. And so was it worth the trouble? The answer is certainly no. If a motorbike costs you 300,000, your day's return will not be up to 20,000. Because you wanted 20,000, you lost some. How does it benefit you? That's where you have been getting money to pay your children's school fees. That's where you have been getting money to live your own life with your family. You've lost it For what? Because he wanted to show intransigence. That is not worth the thing. It is a reminder to every single Ambazonian who are still at war. When the time will come, when the ghost towns will be lifted, everything will be clear. We know the condition under which it will be lifted. We know the condition under which it was declared. And until you hear the final word that ghost towns are lifted, if you go out and try to violate it, you are doing so at your own risk. Just pray that you don't come back wounded. Just pray that you come back safe. But in some cases, people have lost their lives. We condemn those things. But you have to be careful with yourself first. Protect your life first. Protect your property first. And then we shall join you in protecting everybody else. Over to you.
Absolutely, Barrister Mbeseha would say they got what they deserved. But then let's move over to see what's happening in Menchum County. In Menchum County, families are reportedly being forced to transport the bodies of deceased relatives on motorbikes due to the extremely poor condition of roads linking communities to home. In 2026, funeral processions in parts of the county now involve corpses wrapped in white cloth, placed on improvised wooden frames and strapped to the backs of commercial motorbikes as riders navigate muddy, bush-filled and impassable routes, with roads rendered inaccessible. Hearses are unable to reach several communities. Bereaved families say they are left with no alternative but to rely on motorbikes, ropes, and wooden planks to convey their dead for burial. No hearse, no dignity, just a bike, a rope, and grief, said a resident who recently buried a relative in a village outside Bomaka. Local residents attribute the situation to years of neglect of infrastructure by French Cameroon government, as well as the impact of the ongoing war, which has further degraded already fragile road networks. During the rainy season, major earth roads reportedly become impassable, isolating several communities from the county headquarters. Community leaders are calling for urgent rehabilitation of key road access, including the Wom, Bafmeng, Wumwe, and Wum-Esium roads, stressing that the poor condition of infrastructure is affecting not only funerals but also access to healthcare, education, and market. The situation has reignited debate on infrastructure development priorities in the region, with residents urging immediate intervention to restore basic mobility and dignity in both life and death. Barrister Mbeseha. Here's a shocking story: transporting the dead on motorbikes. What does this tell us about the reality in Menchum? What does it reveal about the state of infrastructure, rural infrastructure in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, Barrister Mbeseha?
Well, it is telling. The important thing now is we're doing this in Menchum. It is not only in Menchum. It is everywhere. I think a few months ago we saw how they were carrying corpses in Minyaso, so that is Kopri Maningoba. They're kind of motorbikes, and they will get on the bridge and try to cross it. I don't know how they do it. The only difference that has occurred today in Menchum is something funny and interesting. Notice somebody was dead. It is the indigeneity of those guys. When you are dead, you are dead. They are forcing a dead man to sit upright. You see him wearing boots there. They make him sit because they must carry him. Under circumstances, that man should be lying in the coffin. But since the coffin is too long to be transported back, they force the dead man to live again by sitting upright on some sticks that they have manufactured there. That's the first time I see that. I've seen people being carried on the head, stretchers. I've not seen where people invented the way to make dead men sit alive, to live another ordeal to their graves. To live another ordeal to their graves. Remember just last week or so, we saw another one in, was it Santa? Where motorbike guys were going to bury their guy. And some people came out and said, you pay us money before you go. And they tore the coffin. and so on and so forth. So it is not only in Menchum. The same thing is repeating itself everywhere in Ambazonia. Because there is no road in Ambazonia. Be it in Menchum, be in Donga Mandum, be in Buea, be in Momo, Manyu, Fako, there is no road anywhere. So the same scene will repeat itself if someone died in the BLM today. I have taken to hospital. That's how we do it. The only question we ask ourselves is it what we signed up to in 1961, 65 years after independence, that we will not be able to bury the dead? Then the dead will be forced to live again in order to walk to their graves. That's the central issue that we should be asking ourselves. It's happening 5 years after we joined this people. 65 years after we got independence. The question is, was it worth the trouble calling up? If they resurrected the Funchas, the Indelis, and the Munas, and they were to go back to their own villages in their graves, they will ride a bicycle like that. They will be forced to sit upright. You see that poor dead man wearing his boots. Where else does a dead man wear boots? It is unacceptable. It is scandalous. Because the man is dying several times before he will be buried. And by our own culture, I don't know how to hold that pain. He probably would have been buried where he died. That's better than suffering the dead to die twice for 4 times. They must go and be buried in the village. And so what? So that you come out and talk with the village. No. We're treating this man. We don't know what he died of. He will be for weeks, if not months. Then he died. He was supposed to rest. He's put under another ordeal to ride on a bicycle, stretched to sit up and wear rain boots to be taken to his grave. No, it is scandalous. It is unacceptable. It is unethical. But the fault is not the one of those guys. Give them the congratulation for doing what they did. The fault is that of the government. Where is all the money that we have that we can make even a passable road? Where is all the oil? Where is all the Santa coffee? Where is all the Ndobras that we sell and get money? Where are all the cooperatives that have money that we can make a road, a passable road? We're not even looking for a tar road. The bank is doing it because a fool will talk and not go there. Is it what we sign up to? Answer, no. Can we get out of this? Sure we would. We must be better tomorrow. We will not permit those of us who are still talking, our parents or ourselves to go through that ordeal anymore. Over to you.
A really pathetic situation right there, Barrister Mbeseha. I mean, just looking at that on the screen, it can just give somebody some goosebumps. I mean, it's really shocking to see how deteriorating the nature of this has gotten into, and not just in Menchum, in several locations in Ambazonia. Well, definitely this can be solved. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Barrister Mbeseha. Well, this is where we'll let you go, so we'll head over to the rest of the news.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, we now head over to news from Africa. Luxury boat industry shifts focus to Europe amid weakening U.S. demand. South Africa's luxury catamaran industry is turning increasingly toward European markets as uncertainty over United States tariffs continues to weaken demand from its largest export destination. The sector, valued at nearly $300 million and exporting about 90% of its production, has been affected by fluctuating U.S. tariffs introduced in 2025, which ranged between 10% and 30%. Although the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the tariffs illegal earlier this year, industry players say uncertainty among American buyers has continued to slow orders. Cape Town's V&A waterfront remains a hub for luxury catamaran activity, but manufacturers behind the industry are facing mounting pressure as export demand declines. Industry operators say the instability in U.S. trade policy disrupted what had previously been South Africa's largest, strongest market, which accounted for nearly half of all luxury boat export. In response, manufacturers are increasingly targeting Europe, where demand for renewable energy technologies and environmentally friendly vessels is growing. Night Yacht, which specializes in electric-powered catamarans, says the shift towards sustainable marine technology is creating new opportunities. The company noted that advances in lithium battery systems and clean energy solutions are helping drive interest in eco-friendly vessels. Now, despite the downturn, Production has continued across South African boat yards, although some business report a decline in orders of up to 40%. Industry stakeholders say diversification into other sectors, including automotive-related electrical services, has helped cushion the impact of reduced exports. South Africa remains one of the world's leading producers of luxury catamarans, manufacturing about 275 vessels annually, second only to France. The South African Boats Builders Export Council says the country's reputation for durable, high-quality craftsmanship continues to keep the industry competitive globally. Manufacturers are now banking on innovation, sustainability, and their international reputation to navigate ongoing global trade challenges. Now, away from that, let's see what's happening in Uganda. Uganda and Democratic Republic of the Congo on Monday signed 6 bilateral agreements aimed at strengthening cooperation in trade, security, tourism, and diplomatic relations. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi visited Kampala for the 9th session of the Joint Standing Committee between the two countries ahead of Uganda President Yoweri Museveni's swearing-in ceremony scheduled for Tuesday. The agreements are expected to improve cross-border cooperation, expand trade opportunities, and enhance regional stability in the Great Lakes region. Uganda State House said the deals will strengthen people-to-people ties and support peace and connectivity between the neighboring countries. The Democratic Republic of the Congo remains Uganda's largest trading partner and one of its biggest export destinations. According to Irene Batibe, Permanent Secretary of Uganda's Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Uganda's exports to the DRC were valued at more than $800 million in the 2025-2026 period, while total bilateral trade between both countries reached approximately $1 billion. The two countries also reaffirmed their commitment to joint security operations against the Allied Democratic Forces, an armed group linked to the Islamic State operating in eastern Congo. Since 2021, Uganda and Congolese forces have jointly conducted Operation Shuja, a military offensive targeting ADF fighters in eastern DRC. The renewed cooperation comes amid a resurgence of attacks attributed to the ADF in the region. Now let's head over to news across the globe. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing mounting pressure to step down as his content within the Labour Party intensifies following the party's poor performance in recent local and regional elections. More than 80 Labour lawmakers have reportedly called for Starmer's resignation, although the Prime Minister has insisted he will remain focused on governing. The growing rebellion follows Labour's heavy losses in local council elections across England and setbacks in parliamentary contests in Scotland and Wales, triggering concerns within the party over Starmer's leadership ahead of the next national election expected in 2029. Despite the backlash, Starmer told cabinet members on Tuesday that he intends to continue in office. Attention has increasingly shifted to possible successors should Starmer be forced out. Health Secretary Wes Streeton is viewed by supporters as a strong contender due to his communication skills and his position within Labour's right wing. Other names being discussed include Great Manchester Mayor Andy Bonham and former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, both considered favourites among the party's moderate left. However, Bonham is currently not a member of Parliament, meaning he would need to secure a seat in the House of Commons before launching a leadership bid. Rayner, meanwhile, is still dealing with unresolved tax-related issues that contributed to her resignation from office last year. Now, questions over Starmer's leadership we would examine. Political analysts say Starmer's leadership has been weakened by what critics describe as a lack of clear long-term vision for Britain. After leading Labour to a landslide victory in 2024 election, Starmer positioned himself as a pragmatic leader focused on stability after years of political turmoil. However, several government policies have since faced setbacks, while resignations and dismissals within his administration have added to perceptions of instability. Party insiders say internal divisions and voter dissatisfaction have left the former human rights lawyer struggling to maintain authority within Labour. Under Labour Party rules, any challenger seeking to replace the leader must first secure the backing of at least 20% of Labour members of Parliament. Candidates must also obtain support from grassroots party organizations and affiliated groups, including trade unions. Unlike the Conservative Party, where lawmakers can trigger a vote of no confidence, Labour's rules make it more difficult to remove a sitting Prime Minister because rebels must unite behind an alternative candidate. Labour lawmakers have never successfully removed a sitting Prime Minister in the party's more than 125-year history. Now let's move over to what is happening right in the Middle East. Recent updates. Global oil prices climbed on Tuesday after Iran rejected a United States proposal aimed at ending the ongoing conflict, raising fears of prolonged instability around the Strait of Hormuz, a vital global energy route. United States President Donald Trump said hopes for a ceasefire were fading after Tehran presented conditions Washington considered unacceptable. President Trump described Iran's counter-proposal as unacceptable and warned that the fragile deal announced on April 7 was under threat. Iran demanded an end to military operations across the region, including in Lebanon, where Israel continues to battle Hezbollah fighters backed by Iran. Iranian officials also called for an end to the U.S. naval blockade, compensation for war damage, and recognition of Iran's authority over the Strait of Hormuz. The worsening standoff pushed Brent crude prices close to $108 per barrel as shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz slowed sharply. Before the conflict began in February, the narrow waterway handled about 1/5 of global oil and liquefied natural gas shipments. The U.S. military said the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln remained deployed in the Arabian Sea, enforcing the blockade against Iran, while several commercial vessels were reportedly redirected from the area. Meanwhile, Kuwait announced the arrest of 4 suspected infiltrators linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guards after they allegedly attempted to enter the Gulf state by sea. Iranian officials maintained a defiant tone despite growing international pressure. A senior Revolutionary Guard Navy official said Tehran had expanded its operational control across a wider section of the Strait of Hormuz, stretching from Jax to Siri Island. Iranian lawmaker Ibrahim Rizei also warned that Tehran could enrich uranium to weapons-grade levels if attacked again. The crisis comes as President Trump prepares for talks in Beijing with Chinese President Xi Jinping, where the Iran conflict is expected to feature prominently on the agenda. The war has also triggered political pressure inside the United States, with rising fuel prices fueling public frustration ahead of congressional elections later this year. Recent polls indicate growing dissatisfaction among American voters over the administration's handling of the conflict. International efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz have so far struggled to gain broad support, with several NATO allies reluctant to participate without a comprehensive peace agreement. Well, and with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight, bringing into the news untold stories. But before we go, a recap of the prime headlines on Undaunted tonight. In tonight's Undaunted, we saw man shot dead in early morning attack in Bomaka, Buea. Bamenda Regional Hospital Lab records major growth and 5-star rating amid Ambazonian war. Also tonight, we saw Ambazonian State Army reinforce Monday lockdown on bikes of the forters in Bamenda. Also tonight, Paul roads forced families in Menchum to transport corpses on motorbikes. And on the African scene, South Africa's luxury boat industry shifts focus to Europe amid weakening U.S. demand. And in the rest of the news across the globe, Starmer faces growing pressure to resign as labor revolt deepens. And that is all on Undaunted tonight, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of the entire Undaunted newsroom, we say thank you for joining. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.